5:12 a.m. local time. The Strait of Hormuz. The water on the surface seems almost motionless. From the flight deck of a U.S. aircraft carrier, the sea looks calm, nearly serene. Early morning light spreads over the narrow passage, painting the water in pale silver. Tankers move slowly along distant shipping routes. Fighter jets remain secured to the deck. Sailors continue their regular watch rotations. Nothing in the scene hints that anything is wrong. But 200 feet below the carrier, in the dark, cold layers of the Gulf, something is moving. Inside the Combat Information Center, the steady rhythm of routine operations suddenly shifts. A sonar operator goes still. On his screen, a faint acoustic trace trembles across the passive sonar feed. It is not loud, not dramatic, just a slow mechanical pulse hidden beneath the ocean's constant background noise. He leans in. "Possible subsurface contact," he says evenly. There is no panic in his voice, no abrupt reaction, yet everyone in the room looks up. The signal holds steady. Bearing 147, range 19 nautical miles. The acoustic profile is weak, but the pattern is clear. Diesel-electric propulsion. A submarine. The contact is moving slowly, barely 2 knots, almost drifting inside the thermocline, where warm and cold layers of water bend sonar waves and create the perfect cover for submarines. The operator marks the track. Then, 5 seconds later, another tone appears. A second acoustic trace enters the system from a different direction. Bearing 161, range 21 miles. Another submarine signature. The room grows even quieter. The tactical display refreshes. 2 underwater contacts now move across the digital map beneath the carrier strike group. Different bearings, different acoustic fingerprints. 2 separate submarines. For a brief moment, no one says a word. Then the sonar console flashes again. A third signal rises out of the background, weaker than the others, but steady. Bearing 132. Range 23 miles. 3 contacts. 3 submarines, all moving slowly, all heading toward the same target, the carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch officer studies the tactical map without changing expression. "Track them," he says. No raised voice, no sudden commands, just quiet control. Above, on the bridge, the aircraft carrier continues on its steady course through the Strait of Hormuz, carving a broad white wake through the tight shipping corridor between Iran and Oman. The ship displaces nearly 100,000 tons and moves like a floating city. But below the waterline, it has one vulnerability. It cannot disappear. The Combat Information Center pushes the data into the strike group's network. Within seconds, every escort ship sees the same picture. Destroyers, cruisers, helicopters. The entire carrier strike group is now watching 3 small icons move slowly across the digital sea below. 3 submarines approaching in a loose triangular formation. The pattern is not accidental. Submarine crews train for this. A 3-angle approach spreads the threat across multiple directions, making it far more difficult for a large surface ship to react. The shape develops slowly but unmistakably. 3 silent hunters taking position. 5:17, 200 miles away. High above the Persian Gulf, a maritime patrol aircraft banks slightly to the east. A P-8 Poseidon. It carries one of the most advanced anti-submarine systems in service. Inside the mission bay, technicians begin dropping sonobuoys into the sea below. Small cylinders strike the water and deploy underwater microphones. Passive buoys, active buoys. Within minutes, they create a listening grid across 60 square miles of ocean. Each buoy listens. Each buoy reports. Then one of them catches something. A faint propeller rhythm moving beneath the thermal layer. The signal is transmitted instantly by satellite link back to the carrier strike group. Confirmation. Submarine contact. Then another buoy registers a signal. A second confirmation. Moments later, a third buoy lights up the network. 3 separate underwater signatures. The tactical display aboard the carrier updates once more. 3 red tracks are now moving steadily closer. The distance is shrinking. 19 miles. 17. Inside the Combat Information Center, the sonar operator adjusts his headset and watches the acoustic waveforms rise slowly across the screen. The sound is clearer now. Low-frequency propulsion. Iranian diesel-electric class. There is no doubt anymore. These submarines are not simply passing through. They are closing in. At this speed, they will be within torpedo range in less than 40 minutes. No alarms sound. No sirens echo through the carrier. But every station inside the strike group understands exactly what this means. 3 submarines, 1 carrier, and the silent phase of the hunt has just begun. 5:29. The Strait of Hormuz is starting to come alive. Cargo ships move carefully through the narrow shipping lanes. Oil tankers slide across the horizon. The morning sun climbs higher over the Persian Gulf, throwing long reflections across the water. From the outside, the U.S. carrier strike group looks exactly as it should. a massive aircraft carrier moving through the sea at a steady pace. 2 guided missile destroyers several miles ahead, another escort trailing behind. Helicopters resting quietly on the flight deck. Routine, disciplined, predictable. But beneath the surface, the ocean is no longer empty. Inside the Combat Information Center, the sonar picture becomes sharper with every passing minute. The 3 submarine contacts have not changed course. They are still closing. They move slowly, carefully, methodically, just 2 knots. At that speed, a submarine barely disturbs the water around it. Its acoustic signature becomes almost invisible, no more than a faint whisper. But underwater, even whispers can travel great distances, and now the strike group is listening with precision. The sonar operator continues tracking the first contact. Range, 14 nautical miles. The submarine stays deep, tucked beneath the thermocline, where shifting layers of temperature bend sonar waves and create pockets of acoustic shadow, an ideal place to remain unseen. But no cover lasts forever. A new update appears on the tactical display. The second submarine shifts its bearing slightly. Just a few degrees, subtle enough that a civilian vessel would never notice. But inside the carrier's systems, the change is clear. The geometry is evolving. The 3 submarines are spreading out, widening their formation. The triangle grows larger, more deliberate. The watch officer studies the pattern. He doesn't need to explain it. Everyone already understands. They are positioning for an attack. A carrier strike group is among the most protected formations in the world. Advanced radar, constant air patrols, layered defenses. But threats from below follow different rules. Beneath the surface, visibility disappears, and reaction time shrinks. 5:31. One of the escorting destroyers activates its hull-mounted sonar. A sharp metallic pulse cuts through the ocean. Ping. The sound spreads outward like a shockwave. Inside the Combat Information Center, the acoustic display fills with echoes as the signal reflects off the seabed and returns. Ping. Another pulse. Ping. Every submarine in the area hears it instantly. To submariners, the meaning is unmistakable. They've been detected. Inside one of the Iranian submarines, the captain listens through his headset. The signal is clear. American active sonar. He knows what it means. They are searching, but he also knows something else. They are already close. Very close. He checks the range again. 9 nautical miles. Inside the submarine, the crew moves through the tight control room with quiet precision. No raised voices, no sudden movements, just focused preparation. This is exactly what they trained for. Above the surface, the carrier strike group begins to adjust. The destroyers widen their position slightly, not enough to draw attention, but enough to reinforce the defensive perimeter. On the flight deck, a helicopter crew runs toward a waiting MH-60R Seahawk. The aircraft is fueled and ready. The Seahawk is one of the Navy's primary tools for tracking submarines. Beneath it hangs a dipping sonar system capable of scanning deep underwater. Its pylons carry lightweight torpedoes designed to pursue submerged targets. Within minutes, the helicopter lifts off. Rotor wash scatters spray across the carrier's wake as it accelerates forward. Inside the cockpit, the sensor operator watches the digital map update in real time. 3 submarine contacts. Range, 8 miles. Now distance becomes critical. Heavy torpedoes can travel more than 20 miles, but at close range they become far more dangerous. Less time to respond, less space to maneuver. Inside the Combat Information Center, the numbers continue to drop. 8 miles, 7. The submarines maintain their slow, steady approach. No sudden changes, no signs of hesitation. That calm says everything. They are not here by accident. They know exactly what they are doing. 5:36. The Seahawk reaches the outer edge of the sonar grid. Below, the sea appears empty, but the sensors tell a different story. The helicopter slows to a hover. The dipping sonar begins its descent. A long cable slips beneath the surface as the sonar head enters the water. Instantly, the system begins listening. A faint mechanical rhythm comes through the speakers. Slow propeller rotation, a heavy hull moving through deep water. Submarine confirmed. The operator marks the contact, one of the 3. The others are still out there, still closing. Back inside the Combat Information Center, the range drops again, 6 nautical miles. At that distance, everyone in the room understands the reality. They are now within engagement range. Somewhere below the dark waters of the Strait of Hormuz, 3 submarines are nearly in position. 5:41. Inside the Combat Information Center, everything changes in an instant. A sharp spike flashes across the sonar display. The operator leans forward. For a split second, the sound blends into the background. Then it becomes unmistakable. A high-frequency cavitation signature. Propeller blades spinning rapidly, far faster than before. Not a submarine. Something smaller. Something accelerating fast. The operator reacts immediately. "Torpedo in the water!" The words cut through the room. Every eye turns to the tactical display. A new contact appears. Speed, 50 knots. heading directly toward the carrier. The system calculates the trajectory instantly. Heavyweight torpedo, then another spike, a second launch, seconds later, a third. 3 separate propulsion signatures ignite beneath the surface. 3 torpedoes accelerating at combat speed. 3 weapons now racing toward the same target. Inside the Combat Information Center, the system projects intercept paths. 3 red tracks surge across the digital map. Time to impact begins to count down. 6 minutes. The watch officer stays calm, his voice steady. Carrier maneuvering. Up on the bridge, the command reaches the helm instantly. The massive ship begins to turn. A nuclear-powered carrier weighs close to 100,000 tons. It doesn't move quickly. It can't react like a destroyer. But even a slight change in direction can interfere with a torpedo's targeting solution. The rudder shifts. The bow slowly swings to starboard. Below the surface, the carrier's wake starts to bend. Even a few degrees can make the difference. Back in the Combat Information Center, the torpedo tracks continue to close. 5 minutes to impact. Above the water, the MH-60R Seahawk is already reacting. Through the dipping sonar, the sensor operator hears the launch signatures. 3 distinct propulsion sounds. 3 torpedoes. He marks their paths quickly, but then something else appears. A larger acoustic signature moving slowly beneath the launch point. A submarine. One of the attackers. The helicopter banks sharply toward the contact. Altitude drops. The pilot stabilizes the aircraft as the operator locks onto the target. Confirmed. No hesitation. The Seahawk releases a Mark 54 lightweight torpedo. It falls into the sea and disappears beneath the surface. Moments later, its engine ignites. Now it begins its own pursuit. Back with the strike group, the defensive response continues. 4 minutes to impact. The tactical officer gives the next command. Deploy Nixie! From the stern of the carrier, a cable rapidly unspools into the water. At the end, a small device begins broadcasting powerful acoustic signals. A torpedo decoy. To an incoming weapon, it sounds larger than the carrier itself, louder, closer, more convincing. It trails behind the ship, designed to pull the threat away. Moments later, a second decoy is deployed. 2 moving acoustic targets now follow in the carrier's wake. Inside the Combat Information Center, the display updates. The first torpedo reacts almost immediately. Its path curves. The seeker locks onto the decoy and turns away from the carrier, accelerating toward the artificial signal. 1 threat redirected, but the other 2 stay on course. 3 minutes to impact. The carrier continues its turn, carving a wider arc through the strait. Behind it, the decoys drift like bait in the water. Above, the Seahawk's torpedo closes in on the submarine. It switches to active sonar. Ping, ping. Each pulse cuts through the water, searching. Inside the submarine, the crew hears it clearly. A weapon is approaching. The captain reacts without delay. Emergency descent. Ballast tanks flood. The vessel angles downward, trying to slip beneath the sonar cone. But the Mark 54 is already tracking. Its onboard systems process every echo, adjusting, closing in. Back in the Combat Information Center, the pressure builds. 2 torpedoes remain, less than 2 miles, under 2 minutes. Every screen shows the same situation. 2 incoming weapons, 1 carrier, and almost no time left. 5:47. Deep below the surface, the situation reaches a breaking point. The Mark 54 locks onto its target. Active sonar pulses illuminate the dark water. Ping, ping. Each return is clearer. A steel hull. Inside the submarine, the reality is unavoidable. A torpedo is seconds away. Emergency dive. The vessel drops deeper. Countermeasures are released, devices that imitate the submarine's sound, spreading false signals through the water. But the incoming torpedo filters them out. The real target remains. Distance closes. 200 meters, 100, then a powerful underwater blast. The shockwave spreads outward, distorting the surrounding water. On the Seahawk's sensors, the submarine's signature disappears. No propeller noise, no movement, only turbulence. 1 submarine is gone. But the situation is still critical. Back on the surface, the carrier continues its evasive maneuver. Inside the Combat Information Center, the display updates again. 2 torpedoes remain. Range, 1 mile. Time to impact, under 90 seconds. The stern cuts sharply through the water as the maneuver reaches its limit. Behind the ship, the decoys continue broadcasting. The first torpedo has already been drawn away, but the second stays locked. It continues straight toward the carrier. Inside the Combat Information Center, no one speaks. The numbers tick down. 800 meters. At the same time, another Seahawk sweeps low across the surface. This one has been tracking the second submarine detected earlier. Its sensors confirm the contact. Another submarine trying to move away under the cover of confusion. The pilot banks hard left and drops altitude. Target acquired. Within seconds, a second Mark 54 torpedo drops from the Seahawk and disappears beneath the surface. Moments later, its engine ignites and it surges forward into the dark. Below, the submarine commander hears it immediately. Ping. He doesn't need confirmation. Another weapon is inbound. The submarine turns sharply, trying to change both depth and direction at once. But underwater movement takes time. Torpedoes don't wait. The Mark 54 accelerates, cutting through the water. Its sonar sweeps forward. Then the return. A solid echo. Steel hull. Lock confirmed. The distance collapses in seconds. Then, a second underwater explosion tears through the silence. A burst of bubbles rises rapidly toward the surface. On the Seahawk's sensors, the submarine's signature disappears. 2 submarines, 2 detonations, both eliminated. But inside the Combat Information Center, attention doesn't shift. One threat remains. The final torpedo. Range 500 meters. The carrier keeps turning. Its engines push the massive hull forward, while the decoys trail behind like lifelines. 400 meters. At this distance, everything will be decided in moments. Every screen shows the same thing. One incoming torpedo, closing fast. Beneath the Strait of Hormuz, it's now a race between steel and sound. 5:52. The final torpedo is less than 200 meters away. Inside the Combat Information Center, every display locks onto the same contact. A single acoustic signature racing forward at nearly 50 knots. The carrier continues its turn. But a ship this size cannot outrun what's coming. Now, only one defense remains: deception. Behind the carrier, the Nixie decoys cut through the wake, broadcasting powerful acoustic signals. Each one louder than the ship itself. Each one designed to pull the weapon away at the last possible second. On the tactical display, the torpedo holds its course. Still locked on. 150 meters. No one speaks. The sonar operator watches the waveform climb. 100 meters, then a subtle shift. Just a few degrees. The torpedo seeker begins to drift. It picks up the stronger signal, the decoy behind the carrier. On the display, the track starts to curve. The weapon is changing targets. Inside the Combat Information Center, there's still no reaction. No relief yet. Torpedoes can switch back. 70 meters from the decoy, now fully locked onto the artificial signal, the torpedo accelerates. Seconds later, a violent underwater detonation erupts in the carrier's wake. A column of water blasts upward into the morning air. Shockwaves ripple across the surface, but the carrier continues forward, untouched. The decoy absorbed the impact exactly as intended. On the display, the final track disappears. The last torpedo is gone, but the operation isn't over yet. One contact remains: the 3rd submarine. While the torpedoes closed in, it attempted to slip away, changing course minutes earlier, moving north under the chaos of explosions and sonar activity. But it was never lost. High above, the first Seahawk banks toward updated coordinates. The crew already knows the next step. The dipping sonar lowers again. Within seconds, contact. A slow-moving submarine attempting to escape quietly. Confirmed. The pilot stabilizes the aircraft, weapon armed. Another Mark 54 drops into the sea. Moments later, it activates. Below, the submarine crew hears it immediately. Ping, ping, each pulse louder than the last. They attempt one final maneuver, diving deeper, releasing countermeasures. But the torpedo has already locked on. It accelerates, closing fast. Then, a 3rd explosion. A powerful pressure wave tears through the water. Seconds later, the submarine's acoustic signature vanishes. Inside the Seahawk, the operator confirms it. Contact lost, detonation confirmed. Back aboard the carrier, the tactical map updates. 3 submarine tracks, all gone. 3 detonations recorded. The Strait of Hormuz falls silent again. 5:59. The strike group returns to formation. Destroyers tighten their positions. Helicopters continue scanning overhead. But below, the ocean is quiet. No movement. No signals. Inside the Combat Information Center, the watch officer logs the final report. 3 hostile submarines engaged, all threats neutralized. The carrier continues its course through the narrow waters. From the flight deck, the sea looks calm once again. Cargo ships move steadily along their routes. The horizon is clear. Nothing in the morning light reveals what just happened beneath the surface. But inside the strike group, everyone knows. 3 submarines approached, 3 torpedoes were launched, and in less than 40 minutes, the silent hunt beneath the Strait of Hormuz came to an end.